And good morning to our S&D press conference here in Brussels, and of course remotely for all those having dialed in via remote. It's my pleasure to welcome our group president, Iratxe García, who now takes the floor. And afterwards we have time for your questions both in the room and online. Muchas gracias.
Buenos días. Good morning, everybody. Well, I'm delighted to see you in person, physically, because this means something, that we're moving forward towards normality. We've been through a difficult year with a lot of physical distance. But in my responsibility as president of the Socialists and Democrats, we were trying to ensure that the lack of physical contact did not mean distancing ourselves from your work and the efforts that you've been making to work in these conditions. So I'm delighted to see you in such numbers at this press conference. We're going to look at the plenary session, which started yesterday on an important day, a different 8th of March, an 8th of March where feminism couldn't take to the streets, but it could do work in demanding things, which is part of its mission. It was an important day for European feminism because, as you know, the Bureau of the EP adopted the decision to call one of the buildings of Parliament the Claro Campo de Amor building, Spanish feminist. 90 years ago, she allowed many of us to be here today, votes for women in a democracy. And there were many buildings who were named after men. And I think it was about time that we tried to balance this type of initiative out. So I'm delighted that it came from the Spanish Socialist delegation, from the head of delegation, Javier Moreno, prevailed with the adoption of that proposal. Yesterday, we insisted on the road we have yet to travel down. It's important that Europe makes progress on equality. Last week, we had the proposal for a directive on salary transparency. And there's no doubt that this is a demand of the Social Democrats, which goes back many years. We have to continue to eliminate the wage gap, which is a demonstration of the injustice which exists in Europe and in the world. And it's another example of our commitment. And likewise, the social pillar, the European social pillar. Last week, that was also submitted by the Commission, and it needs to be made more practical in actual actions, establishing a timetable. And this is work that we're doing in the run-up to the Oporto summit, which is what we do every year. It's presided by the Portuguese presidency, where we're going to play a leading role. We're working with the European trade unions, we're working with social organizations, and we will have the opportunity, I'm sure, to see how this proposal for minimum wages in Europe, but also the European instrument for child guarantees to fight against child poverty, and many other initiatives will be put into practice. Another important point is that yesterday we'll be signing the agreement between the Council, Commission and Parliament to promote the work on the Conference on the Future of Europe, which is excellent news, a year late because of the pandemic, but also because of the block between the Council and the Parliament about this conference. And this is excellent news, and everything indicates that on the 9th of May, the Conference on the Future of Europe will be launched. The pandemic has demonstrated that it's more necessary than ever to address the debate on the future of Europe and how we can make progress in a Europe which is complying in a more explicit way with what the citizens want. So I would like to underline that the protagonists, male and female, of the Conference of Europe cannot be politicians or representatives of the EU institutions, but the citizens themselves. The fact that we've managed to open the conference to fora where social organizations, NGOs, trade unions, citizens in general, national parliaments, regional parliaments have a big role as well, will be very important, because the success of the conference will depend on how much the debate moves outside the Brussels bubble. There are other topics in the plenary which are important as well. This afternoon, I'll be participating in the debate on free zones for LGTB persons in the EU. We've been working to draft an important resolution which meets the head-on what the far right has been doing to restrict the rights of LGBT people. The Parliament is coming out to defend equal treatment, so we're delighted that we've managed to move that resolution forward. My colleague Voltaire will be dealing with due diligence for businesses as well. This is a step forward in social and ecological responsibility of European business, which is a priority for us. We've also got a debate on the freedom of the press in Hungary, Poland and Slovenia, responding to some of the events happening in those countries which we consider are running contra to the rule of law, and we think the Parliament should say something. And finally, I know that there is a lot of Spanish media at this press conference, so I will of course refer to the result of the vote which took place yesterday on lifting immunity of Puigdemont, Comín and Puigdemont. I have to say that I'm very happy about the result of the vote. It's a victory of democracy and of the rule of law. The European Parliament has done nothing other than demonstrate the importance of cooperation with the judiciary. We cannot do anything other than cooperate, not block the action of the judiciary. The European Parliament doesn't judge anybody. We just guarantee that the justice does its job. A clear majority, absolute majority of the Parliament supported the fact that Spanish justice should be able to do its job without any doubt. So it's a victory of democracy. It is a victory of Democrats. And it was, of course, intense work. Recently, there was a very strong campaign from the independence movement using arguments that had very little to do with reality. But there's no doubt that at the end of the day, we succeeded in ensuring that reason prevailed. And I insist, what we're doing now is allowing Spanish justice to do its work, because that's what it's there for.
Thanks a lot, Iratxe. Now we can take a question in the room. If you can please indicate your medium and name, and then we take a question online, please.
Hola, buenos días. Laura Zornoza de la
I'm from the F agency. What do you think about the vote against the lifting of immunity? Well, I know there's going to be lots of questions on this. The Socialist Group and I, as the president, I'm not going to waste a single minute in explaining the vote of another political group. Of course, it's up to them to explain why they took that decision, why they decided not to cooperate with the justice. They have to give explanations to citizens in Europe. I'm not going to waste a single minute to do a job which is not mine, but I would like to make it clear and thank the socialist delegation, Spanish socialist delegation, for the work they've been doing to guarantee the success that we had in this vote.
Then we have a question, I think, from David Carreta. Is it possible to take that question?
Thank you very much. David Carretta, bonjour. David Carretta, Radio Radicale. J'aurais deux questions, si je peux. La première, toujours sur le vote.
Two questions. First is on the lifting of immunity of Mr. Puigdemont. Mr. Comyn, Mrs. Pulsatil. There's a long tradition, or there was a long tradition, of defending MEPs and their immunity against the judiciary when they were involved in politics. We've got different courts in Europe who refused to extradite Mr. Puigdemont because they considered that this was being done for political reasons in this legal case. And there are problems of the independence of the judiciary in Spain. So I'm wondering whether you think that a victory of parliamentary democracy, the fact that you're saying it's not our business, it's just up to the judges, what do you really think about that? And the second question is on the five-star movement in Italy. We've heard that they're very interested. We've already asked you whether you had any contacts with them as to them joining the group. I would like to know whether you are personally in favor of allowing an even bigger group of Social Democrats into your group. Thank you.
Gracias, David.
Thank you, David. Well, anybody may express their own opinion. All are respectable. You may feel that the Spanish judiciary is doing its work well or badly, but I would insist this Parliament is not here to express an opinion on what the judges do in Spain. And it does actually seem to me to be a victory of democracy that we should guarantee the respect of the rule of law and the separation of powers. Spain has all the necessary instruments at its disposal to guarantee this job with all the guarantees for the respect of the law, with all guarantees for the respect of the law. And what the Parliament has done today is to lift immunity. It's a privilege, after all, that we have as MEPs so that they can be held accountable by the judiciary. I don't think there is any more democratic exercise than ensuring that a citizen, MEP or not, should answer to justice. And that is what the European Parliament decided as a majority. And then the question about the five-star movement, I would like to reiterate the same as I have been saying over the last few days. There's been no official contact to make this start of negotiations effective. The socialist group has always been open to cooperation with all progressive political powers in Europe in whatever form, but that's got nothing to do with my personal wishes. And if that initiative exists, if there is an official request, well, then we will have to commence the internal procedures in our group to deal with this kind of decision. In any case, the decision will be taking into account the opinion of the Italian Social Democratic delegation and the party, the PD. There's been no contact, but if there is, then we'll do our work.
Thanks a lot. Are there other questions? Yes, please, here.
Buenas, muchas gracias, Guillermo.
Guillermo Abril from El País newspaper. I'd like to put a question to you. I'm not sure if you know about whether there'll be a vote in your group on this. And could you tell us what the breakdown of the vote was in your group, if you know anything about that? How many people voted in favour? How many voted against? Was there a split? Perhaps you could try and explain what the situation was. As you said, Guillermo, this was, of course, a secret ballot, and we are obliged to respect that secrecy. However, the position of the socialist group was overwhelmingly in favour of waiving immunity. There were a few votes which didn't follow that group position for a whole series of issues, territorial issues, a greater sensitivity regarding this issue in certain countries and regions. However, the overwhelming majority of the S&D group, as I said, voted in favor of waiving immunity.
Hola, ¿qué tal?
Marta from the Spanish television. So, 3 questions. First of all, does this mean that as from today, is the immunity waived immediately? Can legal proceedings then start? Secondly, if there were to be a trial, would they continue to be able to act as members of the European Parliament? What happens when the Parliament meets in Strasbourg? That's a different country. So tell us a bit more how this will actually work in practical terms. We have to be clear that the waiving of immunity comes into force immediately in terms of the Spanish government's and Spanish judiciary's request, I should say. And now that decision has been taken, it's up to the Belgian authorities, which have to take a decision as to whether to extradite these 3 MEPs. In the meantime, pending that decision, those 3 members will be able to continue their work in the European Parliament. So questions as to whether or not they can travel to Strasbourg. I must say, I haven't wasted any time thinking about whether or not they can travel to Strasbourg. That's their problem. When somebody has been summoned by the judiciary, I think the easiest thing would be for them to accede to that request quickly in a transparent way, so as to answer the questions which so many of us have. But that's up to them, I think.
Are there other questions here in the room? Do we have any further questions online? I don't see anything. Then I would like to thank you all and wish you a very good week. Merci.
Thank you.
Gracias.